feel like I can't live without my son, right? What do one of you motherfuckers think I do, y'all? For real.
Listen, stop. Don't do that, because I can't take it.
Like, no, for real, though, what do y'all really think? Like, if they're my thoughts, and I've been fighting this demon since Saturday. If them the demons I'm fighting within myself, do you?
In the quiet neighborhoods of South Bend, Indiana, 2 gunshots, fired weeks apart, would forever alter the lives of a grieving family. Kaylin Davidson, 32, a mother whose world revolved around her 5-year-old son Kyler, would experience the ultimate heartbreak when an unthinkable accident claimed her child's life. Derek, Kyler's uncle and Kaylin's rock, tried desperately to hold their shattered family together as they laid the boy to rest. Before we continue with this heartbreaking story, I want to hear your thoughts. How would you cope with losing a child? What would you do if grief consumed you? These questions haunted Kaylin in her final days. Share your perspective in the comments below. Your insights help our true crime stories uncovered community process these difficult realities together. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button to join us as we explore the human stories behind the headlines. Your engagement helps us bring these important narratives to light, allowing us to learn from tragedy while honoring those affected by it. 5 days after burying her son, Kaylin's own life would end violently outside a downtown restaurant, the culmination of a confrontation she herself initiated. This is the story of how devastating grief can lead to fatal consequences. Kaylin Davidson wasn't always defined by tragedy. Born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, she was known among friends for her infectious laugh and fierce loyalty. At 27, she welcomed her son Kyler Jackson into the world, a bright-eyed boy who would become the center of her universe. Those who knew the mother-son duo often commented on their matching smiles and the way Kyler inherited his mother's expressive eyes. Derek Williams, Kyler's uncle and Kaylin's older brother by 3 years, had always been protective of his sister. Growing up in the challenging neighborhoods of South Bend's West Side, Derek had made it his mission to guide Kaylin away from the troubles that claimed many of their childhood friends. When Kyler was born, Derek embraced his role as uncle with the same dedication, becoming a father figure in the young boy's life. Those 3 were tight-knit, recalled Janelle Morris, a longtime family friend. Derek would pick Kyler up from school 3 days a week while Kaylin worked double shifts at the hospital cafeteria. They had a system, and it worked for them. The Davidson-Williams family had deep roots in South Bend. Their mother, Gloria Williams, was a respected community volunteer who had raised her children with strong values despite financial struggles. Gloria's home became the gathering place for Sunday dinners, with Kyler often stealing the spotlight with stories from kindergarten or demonstrating his growing basketball skills in the driveway. Life wasn't without challenges. Kaylin had struggled as a single mother, piecing together multiple jobs to provide for Kyler. Derek, who worked construction, often helped financially. The siblings had weathered hardships together, including the loss of their father to cancer when Kaylin was just 18, and Derek's brief trouble with the law in his early 20s before he turned his life around. South Bend itself shaped their story. Once a thriving industrial hub, the city had struggled with economic decline and rising violence rates. The Davidson-Williams family lived in a neighborhood where gunshots weren't uncommon, though Gloria had always tried to shield her children and grandson from the harsher realities of their surroundings. Kaylin wanted better for Kyler, said former neighbor Marcus Jefferson. She was saving for a move to the east side, talking about better schools. She kept a jar where she put away a little something each week toward their fresh start. That fresh start would never come. Instead, the family faced a devastating chain of events that began on a seemingly ordinary spring afternoon in 2022, when Kyler was visiting his grandmother's house. No one could have predicted that a casual playdate between cousins would end with a gunshot, forever altering the trajectory of this close-knit family. The circumstances leading to that moment, how a loaded firearm came into the hands of children, would become part of a larger conversation about gun safety that the community had long needed to address. As Derek would later tell police through tears, we always thought the danger was out there on the streets. Not inside our own home. April 30th, 2022, began like any ordinary Saturday in South Bend. The spring air carried promises of warmer days ahead as Gloria Williams hosted her grandchildren for the weekend. Kyler, now 5 and full of boundless energy, had been especially excited to spend time with his 9-year-old cousin, DeMarco. The boys had plans for video games and basketball in the backyard. Gloria was preparing lunch in the kitchen while Derek stopped by to drop off a new basketball for Kyler. No one paid much attention when the boys disappeared upstairs for a few minutes, a fatal oversight that would haunt the family forever. I heard the sound and knew immediately, Derek later explained to detectives. That noise, it changes you. I ran upstairs and found them. What the family discovered was devastating. Somehow, DeMarco had accessed an unsecured handgun belonging to a family member who had recently moved into Gloria's home. While playing, the weapon discharged, striking Kyler in the chest. The 9-year-old stood frozen in shock, the gun fallen to the floor, as Derek rushed to his nephew's side. The 911 call, later released to the media, captured Gloria's desperate pleas for help as Derek attempted CPR. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but Kyler's condition was critical. As the ambulance raced toward Memorial Hospital, Derek made the hardest call of his life to Kaylin, who was working her weekend shift. She just screamed and dropped the phone, recalled Maria Suarez, Kaylin's supervisor at the hospital cafeteria. We didn't know what happened, but I drove her to the emergency room myself. She couldn't even speak. For 3 days, Kaylin never left Kyler's bedside in the pediatric intensive care unit. Derek maintained a vigil in the hallway, coordinating with family members and handling the growing crowd of concerned community members gathering in the hospital lobby. Gloria, meanwhile, was also caring for DeMarco, who had become virtually nonverbal from shock and would eventually require extensive therapy. On May 3rd, doctors delivered the news the family had been dreading: Kyler's brain activity had ceased. The bullet had caused irreparable damage. Kaylin was faced with decisions no mother should have to make. She asked to be alone with him, Derek recounted in a later interview. When I came back an hour later, she had agreed to remove life support. She said Kyler came to her in a dream and told her it was okay to let him go. Kyler Jackson was pronounced dead at 4:17 p.m. on May 4, 2022. His organs would go on to save 3 other children, a final act of giving that the family took small comfort in. In the days that followed, community members witnessed a profound change in Kaylin. The once vibrant mother became a shell of herself, alternating between catatonic silence and explosive rage. Her grief manifested physically: she stopped eating, barely slept, and refused most visitors. Her eyes looked hollow, said Pastor Kenneth Lee, who began visiting the family daily. I've counseled many grieving parents, but Kaylin's pain was on another level. She kept saying she should have been there, should have protected him. While Derek channeled his grief into arrangements, funeral planning, managing donations from the community, coordinating grief counseling for DeMarco, Kaylin descended further into isolation. The only thing that seemed to reach her was planning Kyler's memorial service, which she insisted include his favorite superhero themes and basketball jersey. No one recognized that her grief was curdling into something dangerous, a volatile mix of guilt, anger, and desperation that would soon lead to another tragedy. May 12th arrived with unseasonable warmth as the community gathered at New Hope Baptist Church to say goodbye to Kyler Jackson. The small white church, normally able to accommodate 200 people, overflowed with more than 300 mourners. School teachers, neighbors, hospital staff who had cared for Kyler, and many families with children Kyler's age came to support the Davidson-Williams family. Derek had honored his sister's wishes, transforming the somber occasion into a celebration of Kyler's short life. Basketball jerseys in Kyler's favorite team colors adorned the walls. Photos of the smiling 5-year-old playing, laughing, and mugging for the camera surrounded his small casket, which remained closed at Kaylin's insistence. She couldn't bear to see him that way, Gloria explained to close family. She wanted everyone to remember him alive, running, jumping, being Kyler. Pastor Lee's eulogy spoke to the senseless loss while attempting to offer comfort. This child touched more lives in 5 years than many do in 80, he told the congregation. Now we must honor him by protecting other children, by being more vigilant, by turning this pain into purpose. Throughout the service, Derek stayed beside Kaylin, who sat motionless in the front pew. She wore Kyler's favorite color, bright yellow, rather than traditional black, another request she had insisted upon. When the children's choir sang Kyler's favorite song, many noticed she didn't cry. Her eyes remained fixed on the basketball-shaped urn that would hold her son's ashes. It was like she wasn't really there, recalled Tanisha Grant, Kaylin's childhood friend. Her body was present, but Kaylin was gone. After the service, the community gathered at Gloria's home. Food overflowed from every surface, a Midwestern tradition of care through casseroles and comfort dishes. A memorial fund for Kyler had already raised nearly $15,000, with plans to establish a scholarship in his name and fund gun safety initiatives in South Bend schools. Derek attempted to engage Kaylin in conversations about these positive plans, hoping to give her grief a constructive outlet. But as evening fell and most visitors departed, Kaylin's carefully maintained composure began to crack. "I found her in Kyler's room at Mom's house," Derek later told police. "She was just sitting on his bed, holding his basketball shoes, rocking back and forth. When I tried to talk to her, she screamed at me to get out. Said I couldn't understand because I wasn't his mother." The days following the funeral revealed the depth of Kaylin's mental health crisis. She stopped answering calls, missed a critical grief counseling appointment, and was spotted by neighbors walking aimlessly through the neighborhood at odd hours. Derek installed a tracking app on her phone with her reluctant permission, increasingly worried about her state of mind. On May 16, Gloria called Derek in panic after discovering that Kaylin had taken Kyler's ashes from the memorial shelf without telling anyone. When located hours later at the basketball court where she used to watch Kyler play, Kaylin appeared disoriented and admitted she hadn't slept in 3 days. "I promised him we would play one more game," she told her brother. "I can still hear him laughing." Derek and Gloria discussed hospitalization options that night, researching mental health intervention services. They agreed to approach Kaylin about seeking professional help the following morning. By then, however, Kaylin had already left the house, telling her mother she needed some air and would pick up breakfast for everyone. Instead, she headed downtown to the Linden Grill, a popular local restaurant, where a chance encounter would lead to her final, fatal confrontation. The morning of May 17 dawned gray and humid in South Bend. Surveillance footage from the Linden Grill, located in downtown South Bend, captured Kaylin Davidson entering the restaurant at approximately 9:15 a.m. Her appearance, disheveled clothes, uncombed hair, suggested she hadn't slept. Staff would later recall she ordered coffee but barely touched it, instead scrolling through her phone while occasionally wiping her eyes. At 9:32 a.m., Kimari Wright, 26, entered the restaurant with 2 friends. According to witness statements, Wright had no prior knowledge that Kaylin would be there. The 2 women knew each other peripherally through mutual acquaintances, and their relationship had been tense. Court documents would later reveal that Wright had dated the father of one of Kaylin's close friends, creating friction between them over the past year. "It was just bad luck they ended up in the same place that morning," Detective James Morrell told reporters. Given Kaylin's emotional state, it created a perfect storm. Restaurant security cameras captured the moment Kaylin noticed Wright at the counter. For several minutes, Kaylin remained seated, her body language increasingly agitated as she watched Wright order breakfast. 3 separate witnesses reported overhearing Kaylin making phone calls, including one to Derek where she was heard saying, "She's here." The one who said those things about Kyler. Text messages recovered from Kaylin's phone revealed messages to a friend claiming Wright had made insensitive comments about Kyler's death on social media, although police investigation would later find no evidence of such posts. This perceived slight, whether real or imagined, became the catalyst for what happened next. At 9:47 a.m., Kaylin approached Wright's table. The security footage, later played in court, showed a brief verbal exchange before Kaylin suddenly struck Wright in the face, knocking her from her chair. A chaotic scuffle ensued, with Wright's friends and restaurant staff attempting to separate the women. "I was trying to get between them," said Marcus Johnson, a restaurant employee. Kaylin kept shouting about her son, saying no one cared he was gone. She wasn't herself. The staff managed to escort Kaylin outside, where they urged her to leave the premises. Meanwhile, Wright, nursing a bloody lip, told her friends she was done being disrespected and reached into her purse, retrieving a handgun she carried legally with a permit. Restaurant manager Tanya Williams described trying to calm Wright. "I told her it wasn't worth it, that the other woman was clearly going through something terrible. She seemed to listen, but then she looked out the window and saw Kaylin still in the parking lot." Security cameras covering the exterior captured the final confrontation. Kaylin, rather than leaving, paced near the entrance, making more phone calls. When Wright exited the restaurant 3 minutes later, Kaylin advanced toward her again. Wright raised the gun, initially appearing to warn Kaylin to back away. Witnesses reported hearing Kaylin shout, "You think I care if I die? My baby is already gone," before lunging toward Wright. 5 shots rang out in quick succession. 3 bullets struck Kaylin in the chest, shoulder, and abdomen. She collapsed in the parking lot as Wright fled the scene in a waiting car. First responders arrived within minutes, alerted by multiple 911 calls from horrified onlookers. Derek, who had been trying to reach his sister after their earlier call, arrived at the scene just as paramedics were loading Kaylin into the ambulance. He was devastated, recalled Officer Miguel Santos. He kept saying, "Not her too, please not her too." We had to physically restrain him from climbing into the ambulance. Kaylin was transported to Memorial Hospital, the same facility where her son had died just 2 weeks earlier. Despite emergency surgery, the damage was too severe. She was pronounced dead at 11:23 a.m., with Derek and Gloria at her bedside. News of the shooting spread rapidly through South Bend's tight-knit community. Within hours, a makeshift memorial appeared outside the Linden Grill, flowers, candles, and toys honoring both Kaylin and Kyler. Local news crews captured footage of children from Kyler's kindergarten class placing drawings and basketball trinkets among the tributes. As one community member told reporters, 2 lives lost in 2 weeks, and for what? A moment of anger that could have been walked away from. This family has paid a price too heavy to comprehend. Meanwhile, police launched a citywide search for Kimari Wright, who had fled the scene but would ultimately turn herself in later that evening, accompanied by her attorney. The South Bend Police Department assigned their homicide team to investigate Kaylin's death, with Detective Lisa Ramirez taking the lead. The case seemed straightforward at first: multiple witnesses, clear surveillance footage, and a suspect who had already admitted to firing the shots through her attorney during the surrender. This wasn't about who did it, explained Detective Ramirez in a press statement. This was about understanding the context and determining the appropriate charges. Within 48 hours of the shooting, the county prosecutor's office charged Kimari Wright with murder and voluntary manslaughter. Wright's attorney, James Cortez, immediately argued for a self-defense claim, pointing to Kaylin's initial assault inside the restaurant. "My client was attacked without provocation," Cortez told reporters outside the courthouse. "She defended herself from someone who had already demonstrated violent intentions toward her." The investigation expanded beyond the immediate incident as detectives sought to understand Kaylin's mental state leading up to the confrontation. They collected text messages, social media posts, and witness statements that painted a picture of a mother consumed by grief and looking for someone to blame. Derek became a key witness, providing investigators with insight into his sister's deteriorating condition. "I told them everything," he said during a community vigil. How she wasn't sleeping, how she kept having these paranoid thoughts that people were disrespecting Kyler's memory. "I just wish I'd gotten her help sooner." The prosecution built their case around the timeline established by surveillance footage. While acknowledging Kaylin initiated the physical altercation, they argued Wright had ample opportunity to leave safely after the initial fight was broken up. Ms. Wright retrieved her weapon, exited the building, and confronted a clearly distressed individual rather than departing the scene, Assistant District Attorney Michelle Torres stated during the preliminary hearing. The 5 shots fired, 3 of which struck the victim, demonstrate intent beyond reasonable self-defense. The trial began in October 2022, drawing national media attention for its intersection of grief, mental health, and gun violence. The courtroom filled daily with supporters from both families, carefully separated by court officers to prevent additional confrontations. Wright's defense team presented expert testimony arguing that the fear experienced during an assault creates lasting physiological responses that can justify defensive actions even minutes later. The prosecution countered with frame-by-frame analysis of the surveillance footage, highlighting moments where Wright could have chosen to de-escalate. After 7 days of testimony and arguments, the jury deliberated for 11 hours before returning their verdict: guilty of voluntary manslaughter, but not guilty of murder. The distinction acknowledged both Wright's responsibility in Kaylin's death and the mitigating circumstances that led to the confrontation. In December 2022, Judge Robert Wilkins sentenced Wright to 10 years in prison, stating during his remarks, "This case represents a cascading tragedy triggered by a child accessing an unsecured firearm. 2 lives ended, a family destroyed, and now another young woman will spend years behind bars. If anything meaningful comes from this heartbreak, let it be a renewed commitment to keeping guns away from children and teaching conflict resolution that doesn't end in bloodshed." In the months following Kaylin's funeral, Derek Williams emerged as the family's unexpected voice for change. Having lost both his nephew and sister in less than 3 weeks, he channeled his grief into advocacy, establishing the Kyler and Kaylin Foundation with the money originally raised for Kyler's memorial fund. I couldn't save them, Derek told a community gathering in September 2022. But their story might save someone else's child, someone else's sister. The foundation focused on 2 initiatives: providing gun locks to South Bend families and funding mental health crisis intervention training for community leaders. Local schools implemented the Kyler Protocol, a system for identifying and supporting children experiencing trauma or grief before it manifested as destructive behavior. Gloria Williams, who assumed guardianship of DeMarco, partnered with child psychologists to develop age-appropriate materials explaining gun safety to young children. "My grandson never meant to hurt anyone," she explained. "He didn't understand the power in his hands. No child should bear that burden." The tragedy prompted policy changes as well. The South Bend City Council passed an ordinance requiring secure storage of firearms in homes with children, with penalties for non-compliance. Though controversial among some gun rights advocates, the measure received bipartisan support after Derek's emotional testimony at City Hall. "Their deaths exposed gaps in our community safety net," noted Mayor Mueller during the ordinance signing. "When a grieving mother receives no mental health intervention after losing her child to gun violence, we've failed twice." For Derek, each milestone brought mixed emotions: the first Christmas without them, Kyler's birthday, the anniversaries of their deaths. He kept their memories alive through community basketball tournaments in Kyler's name and a scholarship fund for nursing assistants, honoring Kaylin's work at the hospital. "Some days the grief feels impossible," Derek admitted. "But then I see a family pick up a free gun lock, or hear about someone seeking help instead of revenge, and I know their lives still matter." The story of Kaylin, Kyler, and Derek reminds us how quickly life can change: 2 gunshots, weeks apart, forever altering countless lives. What began with a child's access to an unsecured weapon ended with a grieving mother's fatal confrontation, leaving Derek to carry their legacy forward alone. In South Bend today, the basketball court where Kyler once played now bears his name. The hospital where both mother and son took their final breaths has implemented new grief counseling protocols. Small changes, born from overwhelming loss. We share these stories not to exploit tragedy but to learn from it, about gun safety, about mental health intervention, about the unpredictable nature of grief. Perhaps most importantly, about the opportunity each of us has to prevent similar tragedies in our own communities. How has this story impacted you? Would you recognize the warning signs if someone in your life was spiraling after trauma? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone watching who's struggling right now. Before you go, please take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Stories Uncovered. Next week, we'll examine another case where timely intervention could have changed everything: the Henderson family tragedy and the text message that came too late. Until then, hold your loved ones close. Life changes in an instant.